Hi, welcome back to the garden. Today I'm starting kind of a new set of programs. It's called Get Curious, and this time it's Get Curious about ley lines, Ley lines, Lines. And I'm going to look at it from the British perspective, but I will lead you to an author at the end who does a whole lot of work with this. I've talked about him before, Rory Duff. And the reason I thought about ley lines today is they do curious things at the solstices and the equinoxes. They get straighter and they get more together. Now that you're going to say, well, where the hell are these lines? Well, these lines are actually energy lines that are on the earth. And they're called power spots or earth energies. They're also called dragon lines. The Chinese call them, and the Asian cultures call them dragon lines. And they've been around for a long, long time. In the 1800s, when we had a lot of amateur, what they called them antiquarians, which were people who went around looking for old stuff under the ground in England. There was a guy named Alfred Watkins, and he wrote a book called The Old Straight Tracks, Early British Trackways. And he found a whole bunch of trackways that went straight across England. And he noticed that on these trackways, they joined together with churches, temples, big monoliths that are built into the ground. I don't know if you've ever seen any of the shows about that. The ancient people actually scraped into hillsides, and I'm talking big mother hillsides. And there's one called the old Dodd Man, and I'll put the notes below, but it's DODD. And there's some people who say that that's a representation of them going and drawing these lines. But he created a thing called the Old Straight Trackways and watched how they went across Britain and how they went from major church to major church, and a major sites like Stonehenge's on a ley line. And why did this happen? Where did all this stuff come from? The word for the Dodd Man it's a geoglyph, GEOGLYPH, and it means thing drawn on the ground, geoglyph. Anyway, he sort of wrote some of the first books on it. When you look into ley lines, you'll find out there's a lot of antiquarians that were very interested in this. Then it got to the point where universities started actually funding antiquarians and funding research and funding looking at where old things were in England. And they found out that it was really, if they followed these lines, they could relocate ancient things that were buried in the ground, that there had been some reason why these things were oriented as they were. Now, some of the theories at the time were they were oriented by sunrise and sunset on the solstices. Some people thought they were leftovers from when the Romans came in, because Romans always built very straight roads. And if you've ever been in England and you've driven anywhere, you know that the native roads that they just kind of built around the land, and the landforms wander around. They're just very well constructed cow paths. And then the straight roads that go from this city to this city go back to the days of ancient Rome, when Rome either started a city or built off an area that was already developed. One of the theories on the cathedrals is that one of the ways to make sure that the local people can't worship at their local temple anymore is to tear it down. So they would the Anglo-Saxons built their churches on the old temples. And then when the Roman Catholic Church came in, it built its bigger cathedrals and bigger churches on the old Anglo-Saxon churches. They didn't tear all of them down, but they took a lot down. And there's a lot of these churches and major sites that are by water sources, including one called, cleverly enough, Wells Cathedral. But so there's a lot of rich history here. Now, which came first, the chicken or the egg? The water. Is the water why they're there? Is the energy why they're there? And that's become kind of a controversy. Well, then from the 40s to the 60s, they were tracked as lines of power, spiritual forces available, and they decided that they were formed by spiritual forces that had been available to the ancients. That when we disconnected from the ground or weren't the native people, we were not, the Romans came in and a lot of Vikings came in, a lot of other conquerors came in, mixed a lot of bloodlines, Anglo-Saxons and all that, that we lost the ability the ancient peoples had to be connected to them. That was some theories that floated around the 40s and 60s. And that's just in England, but these lines are all over the world. And we're going to have the equinox on the 20th. No, we're going to have the solstice on the 20th, which is when the astrologic year starts. And I'm going to have Dorothy Morgan on my show in the next couple of days, and we're going to be talking about that. So if you have questions about going into the new astrologic year, put them in the comments below. But the guy who kind of now is the geobiologist that's looking at all the lines all around the world and figuring out how they all work is Rory Duff, and he's a geobiologist, and he's written a whole book on this, and it's called A Guide to Ley Lines, Earth Energy Lines and Nodes. And it's really an interesting book if you're into that. He was a geologist, he's very science oriented, but his stuff's not above what you can kind of read and follow. So if someone else has read another book about ley lines that they'd like to talk about, I'd appreciate you commenting below. I know that the BBC has had any number. If you YouTube ley lines, you're going to find a bunch of shows about it, going into much more detail than I can. But there are a lot of different theories about where they come from. And like I said, they're called dragon lines in China and then the Asian community, and they're called ley lines. And I've always heard them referred to, the ones we have in the States, as ley lines. So it's L-E-Y lines, L-I-N-E-S. And I will have the information I talked about who to look at for this. And this is just one of my, just get curious. If it kind of makes you say, I want to know a little bit more about that, you can sit through half an hour video on it and get some more information. It's kind of interesting. It's another power force that we can tie into. And there's some people who believe that the energy shifts we've been going through since 2018, when we got out of the electromagnetic cloud, that they're actually creating more ley lines. So if you didn't know about before, get on there now, because more of them are coming. Anyway, I look forward to hearing from you. I want to thank everyone who likes and shares. And I want to thank all the people who commented on the weight loss program. And I said I wouldn't badge you about it. I'm not going to. Some people have asked for the Spirit 7 and the 4x4s. Like I told you, I redid my entire computer system, and all the documents from the old computer are not on the new computer yet. As soon as they're on the new computer, I will email out PDFs of those two constructions of card readings for you, so you can put that together and kind of do a past life thing. And I've had a lot of people volunteer to have me read their past lives, so I may pick one of those brave souls up on that soon and look at that. But that's kind of where I am right now. I'm going into a week. Next week, I will be building grids all week long, building. I've got 20 plus grids to finally put together in their final form. So I'm going to be a very busy little person. And I will look forward to hearing from you, and let me know if you have any suggestions for what you'd like to learn more about. If there's anything you'd like me to help you get curious about, let me know, and I'll be glad to look into it. Anyway, thanks for coming to the garden. Bye.